Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Robin and I do crime series videos. So if you guys like those kinds of videos, just hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. So today we're going to be talking about Jodi Huisentruit and her mysterious disappearance. This is a disappearance that is still being looked at today. First, I want to get into Jodi's life prior to her disappearance. There was little information on her childhood, but Jodi was born in June 5th, 1968. She was raised by her parents, Maurice Nicholas Huisentruit and Imogen Jane Huisentruit. She was the youngest daughter in her family, and she was raised in Long Prairie, Minnesota. She went to high school there where she became known for being great at golf. So great that her team ended up winning state tournaments in 1985 and 1986. After high school, she went to St. Cloud State University where she studied mass communication and speech communication. She graduated with her bachelor's degree in 1990. After graduating, she worked at an airline for a while, but then she got into a broadcasting job. Her first broadcasting job was at KGAN in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She was the station's Iowa City bureau chief. Then after that, she decided to return to Minnesota for a job at KSAX. After that, she ended up returning to Mason City, Iowa in 1993 for a job with KIMT. These are all news stations, by the way. In Iowa, Jodi grew to be a well-liked anchorwoman and an active member of the community. She was beautiful with her blonde hair and brown eyes and was really starting to gain solid footing in her field. She was a morning anchor at KIMT and was up before dawn every day in time for daybreak at 6 a.m. and daybreak was like her segment. She really aspired to be national one day, and that was her dream. Unfortunately, she would end up on national news in a way I'm sure she didn't want. So, into her actual disappearance. On June 27th, 1995, Jodi was supposed to be at work at 4 a.m. Amy Coons, a producer, called her around then, since she had usually arrived around 3 a.m. She stated that she had called her twice and that she had talked to her. She had woken her up the first time she called her. The second time, the phone just rang. After several hours had passed and Jodi didn't show up to work, the news director, and I've heard different things, I heard it was the news director, this producer, or the police, someone had just shown up and, shown up to her apartment, and it was then that they had discovered that her possessions were scattered around her red Mazda. It appeared that a struggle had taken place at her vehicle. It is almost certain that she was on her way to work, then abducted and taken in another vehicle. The very day she went missing, an investigation and search began. The initial investigation began with her neighbors. After speaking with neighbors, it was discovered that screams were heard around the time that Jodi would be going to work. This was said by 3 separate neighbors. Another neighbor said that they saw a white van with its lights on in the parking lot around that same time. This was never confirmed, nor was the vehicle identified. Now, with the search for her, it took place that day with hundreds of volunteers. The local police and even the FBI searched for Jodi, but they were unable to find her. At the time of her disappearance, she had no known enemies and there was no reason to suspect that she had been in any danger. Since her disappearance in 1995, police and private investigators have conducted more than 1,000 interviews. None of these interviews led to any new evidence, and Jodi was officially declared dead in May of 2001. Now, her case still remains active despite that, and there have been several updates here and there. There have also been several men investigated in her disappearance, but nothing has really come of it yet. The first suspect is John Avasis. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but he claimed to be the last person to have seen Jodi alive. The day before her disappearance, apparently Jodi had participated in a golf tournament, and this John Avasis said that afterwards, she went to his home to view a videotape of her birthday party that he had arranged earlier in that month. Now, the times change a lot of when she had left his house, but I'm going to say it was in between 9 and 10 p.m. I have no idea why she would leave so late when she had work just 5 hours later, but the time's really up in the air. Sometimes I saw that it was way later, and then sometimes I saw it was like 9 o'clock, so I'm unsure. I believe there were some inconsistencies with what John was saying. Now, even though she was at his house supposedly the night before, it's very hard to say that he actually did it because honestly, he doesn't have the time. Like, the time frame is all wrong for him. If he were involved, he would have only had 90 minutes to abduct Jodi. This is because a friend of his, her name is LaDonna Woodford, she said that at 6 a.m. she had called him on his landline phone. Remember, this is way back when people had to be on their landline. They didn't have cell phones, you know, at the ready. So she called him on his landline phone and he picked up. They talked to confirm they were going on their morning walk. She said this all under oath. And so unless she was involved in the disappearance somehow, or she was like just backing him up for whatever reason, it seems unlikely that he had committed this crime. Also, with the producer having called Jodi around 4 a.m., it makes it a very, very little bit of time for him to have gone to her house, kidnapped her, placed her somewhere, killed her, whatever, did whatever to her, and, you know, gotten rid of the body without a trace, basically. You know, it'd be very hard. Despite that, in March of 2017, Mason City Police executed a search warrant on 2 vehicles associated with him. It's unsure why, but details of the probable cause investigators provided to the judge, they are sealed, so we don't really know what prompted them to do this. Now, another suspect is Tony Jackson. Jackson was a serial rapist who stalked his victims. He lived about 2 blocks from KIMT, where Jodi worked, and this was around the time that she disappeared. Jackson had actually broken up with his girlfriend, who looked similar to Jodi, 5 days before the disappearance. Jackson wasn't even a suspect until 1997, and this is when he was found and arrested for 4 rapes in 18 days, and these had taken place in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. He's now serving a life sentence for the rape convictions, but he was cleared as being a suspect in this case. He denies ever seeing Jodi or coming in contact with her, but he also denies the crimes that he was found guilty of, such as the 4 rapes. So, I don't know. I still think he's a great possibility. The timing would just be too perfect. Now, there's another theory that I have that is kind of strange, but there is some evidence to back it up, so I'm going to say it right now. I think that this possibly could have been a cover-up by police, and no idea what they could be trying to cover up, whether it was someone on the force, police chief, whoever, but there are some strange things that have happened around that kind of theory. In early June 2008, photocopies of Jodi's personal journal was anonymously mailed to the Mason City Globe Gazette, and this is just like a local newspaper. There was no return address on it, but it was postmarked on June 4th, and it was from Waterloo, Iowa. The original journal had been in possession of law enforcement. This was since the very beginning of Jodi's disappearance. Now, days later, the sender was identified as the wife of former Mason City Police Chief. It's very strange indeed how she had gotten hold of these documents, because it appears that the former chief had taken a copy of the journal home when he left office. Despite this, the police gave no motive for his wife sending a copy to the newspaper. But for some reason, I feel like that's not random. I don't know, just very strange. I had also found an interesting article from December 2016, and I'll link it down below. But in this article, a man who's a state representative, his name is John Cookier, he talks about how he thinks there's some kind of cover-up. You really have to read it for yourself, but he says, and I quote, "Generally, I would not describe myself as a person who is untrusting, but I have this gut feeling that something is being covered up in Mason City." And that was in reference to this case. I just think it was really interesting that he said that and that he felt the need to come out and say that. Because this case is so old, and the fact that he can still see that there might have been some kind of cover-up, that speaks volumes to me. I mean, her case is unsolved. It's been 23, 24 years almost. I feel like there's definitely foul play, and it possibly could be cover-up. You guys comment down below and tell me what you guys think about this case. I want to hear your opinions on this case. I really enjoyed reading up on this case because it has so many different avenues that it took, and I just feel like people need to know more about it. She literally is around the same age as my own parents, and so I just feel like it's so crazy that she's been gone for so long without a word, basically. And I find this case really important. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.